you for joining us this afternoon for our budget development meeting. I guess that's what it's been, a long day already. So we're going to go ahead and get started on this, and we'll go from there. So I'll just turn the time over to Joyce.
Okay. Joyce Stroshine, Chief Financial Officer for the city. Today we're working on tax solution. We've made all of our preliminary guidance decisions on what to put into the budget, and so at this point what we're looking at is how do we balance our tax funds to the revenues that are going to come in. So at this point, just so you know, the gap remaining is $89,656.
Including all of the things that we put in.
I was going to go in. I want to commend the group, the council, and the mayor. I believe in the years I've been here, this is probably the most robust budget in that we addressed our employees and their pay plan. We addressed the medical. We've addressed operating needs to maintain services, and we are addressing capital needs. I think that's something to commend ourselves for, because we've provided one of the better budgets in that we are moving in the direction of addressing all three factors of a budget instead of just, giving up one for the sake of the other. This one is probably the most robust. But let me go into a little bit of detail about what's in there and what isn't. On one-time money, the Palisades water revenue, we're under a 5-year option contract, and so it's currently in the budget for the portion that would belong to the general fund, $275,000. That's based on that 5-year contracts that are in place. The revenue estimates that we went over last week on sales tax, at $4,548,000. I'm going to kind of round this a bit since you can see it on your sheet. Highway user revenue, $2,475,000. Electric franchise revenue, $440,000. Natural gas, $365,000. Building permit revenue, $675,000. General fund interest, $225,000. State liquor tax, $600,000. County road and bridge, $750,000. And obviously I didn't type that in, but $230,000 for the cable franchise fee. We brought that down a little bit. So those are revenues that are already in the budget at this point. The revenues under property tax, we have not put any additional amount for our 3%, and you can see listed here what we're eligible for under 3%, which is $829,572. The levy, if you take a look at what you're levying, this $27,524,778 is currently what we levied for fiscal year 17. If I say I want to maintain services at least to the current level, and I take a look that CPI is 1.636%, someone could argue that I need to at least raise those revenues to meet the possible demands. And so I equated that into a number, and that's $450,305. So if you wanted to suggest that in order to maintain current services, I need to at least keep enough revenue coming in to the CPI, that's what I would take. You also have foregone balance that's available, $1,719,683. Now, new construction, we discussed that last week. It's valued at $222,231. That is an estimate, but that's based on a $20 million new construction expectation, and that is currently in the budget. In the next sections, these are all the things that you added based on department requests for additional items. These are in the budget. So we have, in the mayor and council section, you've got the working lunch meals for $2,100. Mayor and council overtime, $28. Your photographic needs in the mayor and council of $200. Light vehicles, $27,500. Printing letterhead, $140. Printing business cards, $200. The mayor runoff election, $50,483. In finance, we have An increase in need for dollars for our central supply and the paper that we provide back in central supply of $1,500. And then professional services, the digitizing of our documents, the invoices, the P-card information, our journal entries, that's an additional $3,250. The amount that was in the budget is under what we're expending on that. In the building department, code book update, $1,000. Building department to replace a used vehicle, that's 2003 year, $20,000. In the GIS department, we have hardware, software upgrade for the asset management program, $10,000. In the police department, a new building assessment study, $25,000. Smart boards for the training room in the police department, $10,000. Non-departmental sister city contribution, increase it by $1,250. The senior center and free clinic, we're raising it enough to make it even dollar amounts, so it's $133 for the two of those combined. Animal shelter supplies for pet food, $3,000. Animal shelter professional veterinary services, $8,000. Parks capital, this is to create actual capital expense. And so if they don't use it, we would move it into capital acquisition, but it's $20,000 so that we can start preparing for capital needs within the Parks Department. Risk, the premium increase is $62,664. Risk, Intermountain claims, $2,400. Information technology, it's your records management software, SIRE replacement, $32,000. Information technology, the cloud backup solution, $12,000. Street, for street sweeping labor, $63,000. And then street part-time labor for the seasonal abatement, the one we just talked about with the budget amendment, this puts it into an ongoing expenditure, so you're prepared for the next year, $115,000. Recreation, flag football and volleyball uniforms, but this is covered by additional revenue coming in fees, so that's $6,000. Recreation, the CRC part-time labor, that was $4,350. That was dollars that you gave to CRC due to the reduction that they had in the Fort Hall replica. Airport training, $2,000. Airport clothing allowance, $630. Airport supplies, $9,960. Professional services, subscriptions, $500. Repairs and maintenance, $3,800. Professional services, $6,500. Now, there was a little confusion on the terminal roof. We've got it included in the budget, but they still had some excess reserves, so I need direction on that one as to whether we leave it as a budgetary item for next year or we do an amendment and use excess reserves. So that's $57,000.
Didn't we decide that they were going to do that now rather than wait to do that?
Yes, but it wasn't clear in our notes, so I kind of heard that, and Ashley had heard something different, so it got put into the budget. So I just want to make sure we have clarity on that.
My recollection was they wanted to get it done, and we had the money in the reserves to go ahead and do it.
And if we do that, we can remove it out of the budget.
Yeah.
So
Which means our gap is now $32,000.
Yeah.
that would be correct, because we did the math on that. But I decided, because it's in the budget, to let you give me that direction.
So we'll take that out.
Transit, part-time labor, $80,000. Transit supplies, $15,460. Transit professional services, $16,050. And repair services, $12,717. Capital is at $42,118. All these movements didn't require additional match authority. This is just trying to get their authority matched up to what their grants now produce for them. And so we're just utilizing the authority that we need to keep them whole. Wellness, insurance and benefit consultant, we had added in $20,000 based on the possibility that it was going to go up, waiting for the resolution. And part of the reason for doing that is wellness is an interfund, and I have to charge every fund for their participation. It was easier to put in kind of a placeholder and let you make the final decision when we get here than having to redo numbers completely for all departments. And so that was the reason why it was put in. We've left the capital contingency alone, so you have $1,178,272 in the non-departmental accounts, so it's not designated for any specific purpose. That will be up to your discretion. So those are the items that are in this budget at this point. The items that have not been decided upon that were requested, you got fire overtime at $48,000, fire medical physicals at $27,600, safety equipment at $11,500, operating equipment at $11,000, education benefit at $4,675, electrical Idaho Power expenses $3,335, and then risk outside legal services. I think this was mostly related to the FAA expenses that we've been having, so I just wanted to give you a specific reason for that one. Then street department, stormwater funding, $100,000. Street right-of-way acquisition, $100,000. Airport, your lead airport operations specialist that he requested, $59,815. Sorry, it's a lot to read. Levitt Group, consultant fees. I know I heard today $42,000. I know it's based on number of employees and a rate. I put in the $8,000 before I knew that specific number, so it's just kind of a placeholder there at this point.
So is this 8 really 42?
Well, that's what I heard today, and you might want to give it a little wiggle room because until we get the final.
Because we have,
Minus 20,000.
what do we have in there now, 20
You
or 25?
have built in the budget technically $40,000. 20 of it was already there, and we added 20, and so you have 40 in there. According to what I heard today, you're short 2.
That could go to 2.
Work comp, we talked about work comp. There was requests. You'll see down below the specific expenditures down here, but I'm going to ask Neil to hand out her thing, sorry. This is just kind of a little analysis that I've done on work comp, just so you understand it. What we have projected right now in the salary projection that would come into work comp as the revenue source is about $660,130.38. That's based on if everything we projected for wages and that comes to fruition, this is what you would expect to find in there at the end of the year. That's based on an experience rating of 0.596. If you were to take that back to 100% on the experience rating, you'd be at $1,107,601.01. I've given you the information of increasing the rate by 6%, 8%, and 10% because at our one meeting on this, that was kind of what you wanted to know. How much was it going to cost if we incrementally start raising this up? And so the incremental increase on a 6% increase in the experience rating would cost you $66,456, which I have here. On 8%, it would be $88,608, and on 10%, $110,760. These expenditures down below would then be covered by those revenues, so they're not an additional expense. The revenue source is here, and then I can put in these specific ones. The rest would go to rebuild your reserves and help to fund those greater. So,
And if we go with the 6%, that's still moving us in the right direction that
Correct.
we're trying to achieve? I mean, maybe just not as fast as 10.
well, it depends on how fast you want to move.
Okay.
But yes, that would be, and it would only cost you $66,000 in comparison to, if you were trying to go all the way to 100%, it would cost you $447,000
Right.
this year, which is a pretty big leap.
Yeah.
So that's basically everything, and that's the group that you haven't made any decisions or direction on, and I'm just giving you a follow-up opportunity to do that. And then, of course, if we're in agreement on the 57,000, I'm going to remove that.
Yeah.
Wrong way.
Okay.
So now you're at 32,000.
Okay.
Gosh, after this governor's breakfast this morning, the sales tax revenue numbers are way up. I think we're underestimating what our sales tax revenue is going to be. We could say, add the 6% in, take care of the 32,000, put it under sales tax revenue, and we have a zero gap right now.
It's okay with me. I'm with you. There you go.
I don't disagree with that, and I think you could do that according to that discussion we heard today. But don't forget, we do need to allocate enough for the Levitt Group if we're going to actually...
Another $2,000.
That's another 2,000. And then I believe the question really is do the work comp experience rating, are we going to continue to try to build that?
That's 6%. I included that in the 6%.
Oh, you included that in the 6%.
I included the 6%. Yeah.
That was the 6% comment. Okay, it's taken a minute to get through there. You know.
So you're saying to
I would
add...
actually do that at 8%.
Add that number into the sales tax.
Okay, I'm going to wait
Okay.
till...
I would argue for the 8%.
You can add that number into the sales tax revenue.
Oh, okay. So whatever I'm out when I get to the end, you're saying we're going to just take that against sales tax as a whole?
This 6%.
Well,
I'm saying let's go to 8% and be on a 5-year plan to get it. That almost equates.
I'm still at 6.
So,
I'm a 6. I think 6 is adequate, but I'm good with
all it
8.
takes is one big claim and then we're back in the hole.
Yeah, but
Let's not have any claims.
Now, I like that vote.
We wouldn't have insurance if we thought we could do that.
you know what, Council, I'll just throw this out there. I really think that we've done a lot of work and we have made up a lot of space that we didn't have before. I mean, we've been really fighting for it. I would recommend that you take the levy rate of the 1.636% just to stay up with expenses. And that solves that problem instead of guessing on the sales tax. I agree the sales tax is going to be higher, but we've worked awfully hard to come to a screeching halt and stop progressing and making sure we're staying up with expenses.
Well, I don't think to me, taking the extra sales tax and talking about where you're talking about are two different issues. I mean, I know they accomplish the same thing, but we take a little more sales tax money because we think it's going to be there, right? Mm-hmm. I still support taking the 3% increase and the new growth.
I support taking the new growth. I don't agree with the CPI part because I think that that's where the new growth should be keeping up. We should keep up with inflation in the growth part.
Well, new growth doesn't keep up with inflation. It never has. That's why they allow you to take 3%. New growth is the new stuff that comes on, and that's why for the last 15 years, we've never had any money to keep up with capital. It's because we don't take the 3%. We're finally in a position where we can take some capital money, and I say that we should do that again this year and have that money in the pot. We have so many things on the board that we need to take care of. You're talking about the possibility of the shop issue. You're talking about the parking lot out here. We need more police cars. We got more capital fire equipment coming, and we could never make good decisions there that we would like to because we never have any money to do that. Now, by just taking the 3% in the new growth, we can take $1 million and put it in the capital fund, and then you can make some wise decisions next year based on, is it better to lease a fire truck or we're going to save a couple $100,000 buying it outright? We've never been able to do that because we're always poor because we never take the 3% money. So, and we can continue to do that. We've been doing it for a long time, so.
Well, one comment I would make, if you take a look, and I've kind of just calculated over here to the side, the amounts that you've added for capital and for operating is about $747,000, okay? And if you look, that's just to basically maintain your services. That's how you have to view that. It's not for expansion. It's not for adding new services. It's just doing what you're doing. And so if you take a look at that, and then you can come back up here and you look at property tax, if you take the 440 and the 222, you're at $672,000. So basically, your CPI of your property tax and your new construction is really just going to help you cover maintaining.
Exactly.
And so it's just another way of looking at it. I'm just trying to help you to see the parts of the puzzle here a little bit. It's
And
not-
we've had a lot of discussions this last 6 months about explosive growth. I mean, we've talked about that. Well, if that happens,
We got to be
and
prepared.
we haven't been doing this, you say, are we prepared? I'll guarantee you we won't be prepared. But if you have $1 million or $1.5 million in capital that's not committed going into the next budget year, if something tremendous like that does happen, you got a little room. You have a little flexibility there. But
Almost thou persuadest me.
What I worry about is we've worked hard to get to where we are, and I hate stopping. So that in 10 years, we're going to be working hard to get where we are, and it's going to take another 20 years to get there again. That's my concern.
And you look at the plan that we've kind of committed to on the police vehicles. We know it's a wise decision. We know it's going to be good for the department, but we got to put a little more money into it to make it work, or we're never going to get there. It's easy to sit here and say, yeah, it's a great idea. We know it's a smart thing to do, but if we don't put some money away to start paying for that, we'll never get it done. So,
Well, and
we have a
another thing-
list of those things.
And another way to look at it too, it's just like we do with the rate study. If you think about the utilities, we do the rate study and we do these small incremental movements up. If you think of your property tax in the same way, to maintain your services where they're at, if I make these small incremental moves, I never hit a year where I have to take a big amount,
Right.
foregone everything, because I didn't take it incrementally smaller in those moves, where people can adapt to those increases in an easier manner than a big chunk all at once. That's kind of what
Council
way I-
President, you were going to say something?
Gary,
Yes.
have you seen us do this before? Adding all those things in? I mean, we have been playing catch-up forever. We're finally starting to feel like we're getting ahead of the ball. And I agree, I don't want to go backwards. But I also want to see what that does to the levy, because I'm not willing to go any higher on the levy. I think we've maxed that out. And I know that the budget drives the levy, not the other way around. But the levy is the story. And
I will tell you the only problem with that, now one way around it, and I'll give you this out in that approach. The problem is we don't get market valuation numbers until the end of July. So where could be the key? Well, you could propose the budget to be an additional whatever, and I publish for that, but during the hearing or during that process, you could tell me, no, I don't want to take that much. And if we throw it all, let's say, into capital acquisition or the capital contingency, easy to remove it. We know where we're going to hit it. But then at that point, you now know market valuation numbers. If we try to wait until you have market valuation numbers, I will tell you this, it'll be too late. Because once I publish those numbers, I can't go higher.
Right. So we could go ahead and say, okay, we're going to take the 3 and we're going to take the new, but when it gets right down to the end, if the levy staying the same dictates that that's only half of that, then we only commit to half of that. Is that what you're saying, Steve? I mean, I understand that. I get that.
Yeah.
And I'd be okay with that. I mean, I think that's at least, that's putting some faith and hope in what that looks like. But yeah, I understand that.
Roger?
Okay, so the market valuation has a possibility of going up because Steve's house is going to pay for a lot of
Well,
that.
Thank you, Steve.
well, and the indicators, I will
Come
be
on
honest,
over.
the indicators from the assessor's office is they're being optimistic. They haven't given me any solid numbers, but yes, she
Okay.
said the numbers are coming in strong, is how she put it.
But see, to me, that the market valuation and the new growth should meet inflation. If we're staying current as a city, the valuations of our property and our growth should at least address inflation. And I would be comfortable saying I will go to wherever market evaluation goes, but I don't want to frame in there 3%. I do not want to go there. I work with poor people in so many different ways, and I just don't want to go and take bread off their table or shoes off their kids' feet. And we've been doing that. We've been going to the tax well quite a bit. I'm just not.
I disagree that we've been going to tax well quite a bit. I've been here for 15 years.
Yeah, but the
We hardly
last
ever
three-
do. We did last year.
Last
I think
3
we took
years-
3% last year, you know?
The last 3 years have been.
And yet a lot of the other agencies do that
Well,
because
you're
they have to
correct.
stay afloat.
You're correct in that we had to go there big time in 2015, but it wasn't for additional new expenditures, it was to maintain, and you still didn't take everything that you lost, and that had to do with the
We
pilot
didn't cut
transport.
services much either.
Pardon?
We didn't cut services much either.
Well, you didn't cut them back in the time that you were taking all of the pilot. You were also taking tax, and that's the reason why you had growth on both sides, and you were growing
But when
at a
that was
rate.
found to be wrong,
Right.
we didn't readjust
Well, you
that.
did cut services because you had a transfer of 2.4 million, and you only took 1.9 million in additional
Right.
tax.
Yeah.
So,
We've done a lot of work, and I don't think anybody up here wants to take bread off anybody's table by any means,
No, but I'm
way,
giving-
shape, or form. And we were taking extra money in the pilot and from the rate users or rate payers and stuff, and so we corrected that.
right.
And we've had to make some very difficult decisions, and I'm okay not taking 3%. I'm kind of with Gary because of where we've been, and I know how many things we've just deferred over year after year after year. We've deferred things. And so if we're not comfortable with 3%, then I understand that, and I don't disagree with not taking 3%. But I do, I really feel strong. You've got to stay up with inflation. Insurance costs went up $700,000, and the CPI is giving us $450.
Exactly.
And
That doesn't
so-
mean, that isn't leaving any room for the increase in gas and the increase in electricity. It's all gone in that one thing.
That's exactly
That isn't
right.
keeping up.
And so that's
We
not
never have to.
keeping up. My fear is, we have worked so hard to get to where we are so that we can keep up. We've been playing catch up.
Well, I don't think we can
Finally,
afford to slide
there.
back.
That's what I
Because
don't
that's
think
what
we
we've been
can afford.
fighting.
I don't think we can afford to slide back. I agree with that. And that's why the CPI is what I really think we ought to be looking at, the CPI. If we're not comfortable with 3%, I completely understand that, but the CPI, when insurance is going up $700,000, and it's tough.
Do you have an equation that shows us the levy rate?
Yep.
What does that?
Well, right now,
450?
but remember, it's kind of
I know.
it's not a very good picture because it doesn't tell us anything about what we know. Right now, based on your decisions, you're actually down a little bit.
Now, Joyce, that decision has the 222, the new construction included.
Does that have?
Just new construction.
It does not have the CPI.
16?
What does the
No.
CPI, what if the CPI was added to
If
that? What
we do
does
that,
look
okay,
like?
I'm gonna go to.
I'm a little nervous to see that now.
And I figured out how I
I
can do
don't
that
wanna go
quickly for
backwards.
you. And right now, what was the amount again? Let's see,
450, 305.
Okay.
Thumb drive,
So I'm going to throw it all into the general fund.
We're
So
doing that.
Yeah, we did that once.
that would raise you up. So down below, I'm just checking myself. That would mean you'd take total tax between new construction and the CPI of $672,000. If I come over to property tax, I'm looking at general fund. I'm still under my .009. I care about that. And then what we see on the chart is it goes up
like that.
to about a .0001. That looks like 1.8.
And what is it if you do the 3?
4 years back.
Oh, if you took the whole 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you took the
I can do it. I have to
829.
just think about what I'm doing here so I don't go to the wrong
Yeah,
place.
Steve.
And that would have been,
The full amount is 829.
29,572.
Yeah.
Okay. That means at that point, I might be a little bit over. I couldn't take it all to the general fund, I think. I think we'd use up You'd be at a $1,051,000 increase. Let's see. That makes it almost a straight parallel line.
And that's if the valuations stay flat.
That's if it stays flat. I put in the 20 million. You can see that between the 2 billion, sorry, got to remember how many zeros I have here. 2,456,000,000. I go to 2,476,000,000, and it makes your increase about 3%. Let's see.
Joyce, can you email us this?
Yeah.
Can you email it to us so we can play with it?
Yeah, I'll have to, I've got one on another sheet, but this thing's all driven off of, I don't know that you want this particular spreadsheet because there's like about, I don't know, probably 40 sheets in there. And so I'll make it work on a single sheet. So
Well, just one that's got all the year's history and...
yeah, I can give you that. It's the only problem with this thing is it's linked to another sheet.
Okay.
So
But you can get that cut out and get it sent to
I can
us.
get it fixed and sent to you. So
I'm okay publishing a little high, but I'm not interested in going any higher on the levy.
Okay. And I understand.
I'm okay leaving it flat, but I don't want to go much higher.
I would be, but I understand where you're coming from. But I think if we take both of those numbers and build them in here now with the understanding that when we get down to the point where we know what the valuation is, maybe we'll be able to use most of that money and keep your levy the way it is.
Yeah.
And if that's not the case, then I'd be willing to have more of that conversation. I just hate to see us hog tie us now and then all of a sudden, hey, things do look good, but we didn't take it, it's gone again. You know? That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, because we can't take it back down, so.
So what did we add in today? Did we add in the
the only things that you
new
added,
construction?
you added the Levitt. Oh, I hadn't added in the.
The 11
You said-
and
did you
the
say 8%?
6% is what the majority said.
Okay, so I've added that, so I need another $101,112. Now, I don't know where I'm taking that from at this point, because you said sales tax initially, but I don't know if you end up taking property tax, are you still taking sales tax, or, I mean, I don't know what that
Sounded to
is.
me like
Sales tax, it sounds, from what we heard this morning, it sounds like sales
I'd like
tax.
the sales tax to close the gap.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Oh, whoops, I gotta go a little, I gotta be a little more, I gotta figure out which way it's gonna go here. Sorry. Yeah, that's it.
Just to be safe, and then taking it back down.
So that'll take you to zero.
Just to be safe.
Publish the
publishing
max
three,
and then
just
take it
to
down.
publish it,
I'm
but
okay
know
with
that we're
that.
gonna
I'm
try
okay
and
with
get
that.
it down.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I think,
That allows us some
let's do
wiggle
that. That way that does allow us to do it. So we'll publish the 3%.
publish the 3%.
And then if you'll send that to us so we can see what it is and we can mess around with it, we can.
Yeah, and then if we look ahead at based on some of these decisions, now there's nothing else you're going to add, that's just it, right?
Yeah.
Because we're going to finalize.
I think we ought to have some conversation. We've talked about Ready Group today. If we don't get that in, we're not going to get it in. And it's something we could cut out later.
I think we should add it in now.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We could add it in today. I also think that if we're going to move on fleet development, we ought to get serious and budget that.
Can that, though, the capital contingency, can you get that money from there?
Well, then we're just taking it away from the...
Sure you can.
But I mean, yeah, I think you can add it, but if if we took it out and then mid-year decided you wanted to do something, then
Well-
you have that.
Yeah, exactly.
The 1.2 million can be used anywhere you need
Yeah.
it.
Right. Right.
If you're adding more expenses, then I'll have to add more revenue somewhere at this point.
Yeah, I just don't want to consume a lot of that capital acquisition.
No, I agree.
And, but, you know, numbers I'm kicking around here are like, I think we need an economic development person for the city to work in close conjunction with Hotel Development Authority. I think we need, and that's our sole role. I think we need to put 35,000 for ready, and I would put 150,000 in for fleet development, so that we've targeted that. We're not going to go to capital acquisitions. You know, if we look at that, that's $250,000 roughly. It's a little short. No, it's a little more than that. But that's not going to take dump trucks off the line or road grader off the line or something like that if we really need those things. I'd rather be firm and have a plan that we're accentuating right now, that this is a direction that we're going to have to go.
And what's the 150 for?
The fleet development.
And what does that mean?
Well, we get, you heard me ask the question, if we hired somebody to be our consultant, but would also be our fleet person to get it going, so that we're not having everybody else out of another department drive that. And that would give us a person and perhaps an assistant to really help that happen.
Okay. If I'm adding things, let me know, and then I will add the lines, and you give me the description of what I'm adding so I know which fund is going to be tapped for it. For instance, your 150,000, I don't necessarily have to put it in a wage line. We don't hold you accountable to the wage. We can always reclass that once all these determinations come in, but I need to put 150,000 into street to give them the funding source and the authority source to go and expend.
Okay.
That was going to be my question. Let's say that we didn't put that in there, and in 6 months into the next budget year, things fell into place. We ended up with a facility. We needed to get that going. Couldn't you fund the position out of street reserves for that first year or something? I mean, to still have room to make that happen?
If you have reserves, technically your reserves are only supposed to be spent on capital or one time.
Okay.
So we've had a couple of issues where I would call it a one-time. Let's say I'm hiring a person. I'll say it's a one-time expense, but if I'm making this commitment to hire this person, that means in the budget I'm going to add that person, and that's ultimately the byproduct of this decision that I'm making with one-time money. The one-time money cannot fund them year after year after year.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay.
So I'm not opposed to doing it either way. It just seems to me like there's stuff that's got to fall into place before that actually happens, and maybe we should.
No, but if we've set a course and we've got data that says, I don't want to go buy a place without somebody really hammering down on this and saying that the place that we're looking at is sufficient or maybe too big. You know, those type of things. We need somebody, and our street department's busy enough taking care of streets. They don't.
Yeah, but I think our street and public works people have shown enough expertise to be able to handle that end of it. I worry about hiring a full-time position for that job and then before we've decided on a building or anything. That would be my concern with that, because I think
you could put it into the budget as a fleet management or maintenance, however you want to describe it, contingency. In other words, Tom couldn't expend it until he had approval and guidance from the council.
Okay.
That way you have authority in there, the budget's built for it, so we don't have to come back for that decision. You just give the empowerment to say, okay, Tom, go forth and conquer it.
I'd be all right with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be okay with that.
I'm just trying to anticipate where we're.
Well, and there would be some costs in the assessments.
Yeah, that's 152.
I think from what I've seen, we have the skills in-house to figure out what kind of building we need and to get that working without hiring another employee to do that. I think once that happens,
But if we buy the building, do you want
then
to
you
just
have to move forward with that. I agree.
So,
But I don't think we need a consultant or an employee to do
I don't think some of the
that
buildings are
work.
going to set for a year, more than a year, because we're not even in that budget cycle.
Right. Well, 150,000 is going to go a long way if you're 6 months in before you start expending. If you're talking about an individual, that's going to cover the individual plus some.
Well, and there might be some other fees and
Right.
costs associated.
So that would be my thought there. But that would
let's
be
just put
one
a-
way. One way to put it in and know that you're covered for it if that should happen. If it doesn't, then the authority's not going to be used and expended, which will then build his reserves. And you see what I'm getting at? You have flexibility there. at that point.
But I do that. I do think the ready thing, we need to just say it's in there until we decide it's not.
Yeah.
So am I going to add those two things?
So, yes.
I'm good with that.
And then,
I think it,
and then
I'd
I
like
think,
to add an economic person as
I'd
well.
like the economic person. If you go back to the one thing, the slide that had all the assessed values on the top.
Uh-huh. You want me to go back to that? Is that what you're
just go
saying?
back there.
All right, I'm just going to, okay.
See, those values are pretty flat across the top.
Well, and we showed that last week when we showed where the market valuations have been, and you're right. But I'm hearing the world is changing for us to the better.
You know, the irony is that we were hired coming out of the recession, and we are quite a ways from it now. And
what?
look at 2012.
Well, there were some things that happened along there that messed that up.
I can tell you on 2012, part of the issue was that was Central Corridor that came off. It wasn't that you had big growth there, it's that you had a
Well,
TIF
but I'm
district that
saying that
closed.
things were happening, but our valuations have dropped since then. That's my point. It's not what came on.
Well, no, because you had a long-term district that all that value at one time that grew during that district dumped into the property
Okay,
tax value.
But-
So if you take that out itself,
No, go back to
If
2012.
you look at 13 to 18, if all we have is that 20 million that comes in, you're within what, 5
We're over
million
that.
of being back to where you were.
But my point is, we're flat. And if you dump that in 2012, you still have dropped back from that valuation. It's not like it's a one-time dump into your valuation, it's an all-time dump. Our valuations from back in 2012, $2.54 billion. We were now at $2.456 billion. We're not even.
But you're about 100 million difference, which is about your Central Corridor.
Well, we've had
Central
some issues
Corridor was
along.
in it and it stayed in it. It didn't come off.
Right, but I'm saying from when your Central Corridor came on, you're about $100 million difference.
Yeah, but the Central Corridor always stayed on. We didn't take it back off.
Actually, more like 75.
And what year did we have the hospital issue?
Well, that was, shall we say,
14?
no,
That was 11 or 12.
Yeah, it was 11 and 12 as well.
and on.
Yeah, Amy's, yeah.
Yeah, every time we get
Actually,
up there,
I
it's
think
given
that
away.
was also between 12 and 13 was the hospital where they valued it incorrectly.
But that was a
Your
$50
other-
million thing.
Yeah, and then your other issue has been the one where they corrected, during this time period, isn't that you didn't have growth, they corrected on for a depreciation issue, and that was in the last couple of years. And so part of it is, in those earlier years, you were getting it, and you probably shouldn't have.
And you
Okay.
look at the on where they've reduced that yet again because of the.
That was between 15 and 16, I can tell
But
you that.
yeah, that's right. It was between 15 and 16.
That's what created that.
The assessor
Valuation.
tried to pull more out, and it ended up that they weren't taking enough. They were charging them too much, and so
They
that
were-
dropped
that's right.
another about 10 or 11 million dollars.
So part of it looks
Amy's-
like we lost valuation, and yes, but we had valuation that we never should have had to
We
begin
had
with.
valuation corrections.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Like the
Okay, so what do we
personal
decide we're going to do, Mayor?
We decided that we're going to add into this. We decided sales tax was going to fill the gap of the 32,000 plus the 6%. Then we were going to add in 35,000 for ready, 150 for fleet. Were we going to add in the economic development person?
I don't know what the salary would be, but I just.
Heather Buchanan, HR Director, we've already slotted an economic developer in the hybrid pay plan. With benefits, it'd be around $114,000.
There you go.
Okay,
We're going to
so
add
it's
in
already-
114,000.
It's already in the budget?
No, we've slotted no, sorry. We've already slotted
We
the
will
positions
slot
in the
it, we will
grade.
slot it in
Slot it
there.
at one place and have it at the other.
And then,
Did you say 114?
and then we were going to publish the 3%. And with the idea that we would see what it looks like after everything washes out, and at the public hearing, we'll probably end up dropping that and reducing that down.
Depending on what the levy looks like.
Yes.
Okay, I've got ready, I got economic development, and then it was the
Fleet.
street, the fleet.
The fleet in the street department,
Yeah, fleet development.
Okay.
150 there.
Contingency, I think that was operational.
Well, I-
Facility, Fleet Street.
Fleet Street, that's right.
Best things in the world.
I'm not going there. Okay, so that's about
we've added
300,000,
270
and I'll be okay based on the fact if you take tax. What I want you prepared for, and what we probably will need to do, is have a meeting. That's what I was going to go over with you. Let's talk about the meeting schedule. So at this point, based on the guidance you're giving me, I'm not sure that we need to meet on the 15th, the 29th, or the 6th. The question is,
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a discussion there? I'm
That
sorry.
includes
I heard
all
no
meetings, right?
discussion.
All meetings, right?
I was just meaning for my role.
Joyce, my question is when will we have an idea what the evaluation really truly looks like?
Every time I get my numbers, it's the last week in July. So even before I publish, I'm not going to know. So if my guidance is to publish high,
So I guess my question is your guidance is to publish the 3%.
right.
When we, at the end of July, when do we have to act, when are we making the decision and
Public hearing.
the public hearing and everything? Is that at the end of August?
When I publish, send my publication on the 14th, it's going to have all these numbers in it, including the 3%.
But when-
And you don't have to make any decision at the publication, so when I go to the public hearing, I'll be saying that we've published this.
When do we know what the numbers are?
Well, that's the last week in July.
Okay, the last
she
week
can-
in July. Now, when do we know, when is our first public hearing on the budget?
August 3rd.
Okay, so at the end of July, so that August meeting, it would probably be a good time, August 3rd in the morning, for us to have a meeting so that we know what those numbers look like.
Yes.
So going into the public hearing, we'll have an idea.
Yeah, and then I
So-
can add that to the commentary during the public hearing, that based on the valuation numbers,
Perfect.
even though we've published this, we plan to do this.
Good.
And what I will need to know is by the end of that hearing, what I'm doing, because then I have to publish for the ordinance.
Right. That'll work out very.
So if we have a study set or a budget development meeting August 3rd,
Yes.
so that we can have the evaluations, the real numbers,
And make that decision.
and make that decision so that in the public hearing, we know what we're talking about and it's not a surprise to us, then we shouldn't need another meeting on the budget until August 3rd.
That would be my take as well.
Okay, so why don't we plan on that? Ruth, can we do that?
I'm looking at that. Do you also wish to have your new working lunch that day as well?
Sure, we'll do that, but we'll have our meeting, it starts at 9 o'clock. We should be able to hammer that out by noon, I would think, and have a working lunch, and then
So you
that
want
would
me to
give us...
advertise it immediately following the budget?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Okay.
I just want to make
And
sure
then
I notice it correctly.
I just need one more clarification. I'm going to take a look at, the next thing on my agenda is to take a look at the fee schedule. You talked about moving all fees to the nearest 50 cents and a dollar. I'm gonna do that. I'll look at it and give you the assessment of what it is, and send you out a document. I'm wondering if, I've got to publish on that as well. And so I'll need guidance on that as to whether that's truly what you want to do, because I'm thinking more in terms, not so hard on all fees except for the rate study fees, because we state that we're only raising it by the rate study, which is 3%, 4%. You start raising those up to the nearest,
Well, if you round them instead of raise them.
okay.
If you round them, then you're going to round down and you're going to round up. And I think you're going to come off with a better level than if you take everything up.
Okay.
That's where I was coming from when I
All
said,
right.
let's get some consistent numbers instead
So
of 45
anything
cents here.
50 cents, when you say round down, I think, okay, the rules of rounding are anything 50 cents and less go to zero.
down.
Go down, and everything 50 cent and above go up.
Unless you say round to the nearest 50 cents. And then anything
Yeah, well,
that's
right.
24 cents or lower.
Yes, then you go half of that, that's right. Is that what,
That's what
and that's what I'm looking
I
for, is
prefer.
direction.
'Cause
Round everything up to the nearest $10. How's that?
Oh, happy days. Well, you do realize you'll get the,
Yeah, right.
But I just think that probably normalizes most of them. Some will be a little higher, some will be a little lower.
okay, that's
They'll
fine.
work out.
That's what I was trying to get.
Is that a whole lot of
clarification on.
work for you to do that? I mean, should we just leave it alone?
I'm not going to change the revenue estimates based in the budget. I'm just going to change the fee
I
resolution.
mean, it sounds simple to us, but if we're generating a whole bunch of work for you, maybe we should have that discussion.
If you
right
asked
now.
me to redo all the revenue estimates for those departments, I'd probably say, wow.
And that's with all the energy she's got.
That's right.
But if I'm just altering it because we are expecting it to not have a major impact and we leave our expectations alone and then we see the ramifications, then going forward it will be easy because we'll do it as we prep. But in this particular year, I would probably alter for that because my expectation is I'm hoping that not everything's at, shall we say, 17, 20, or, at the 24-cent mark, so I'm not taking everything down, nothing going up, right?
Well, when you're doing the counting, are we asking you to do something that's really not accomplishing anything? I guess that's my question. It sounds good to us, but is it really accomplishing anything?
I don't know that it makes a big difference, especially when you talk about the utilities, because they go into that system over there. We put them in once, and away it goes. When you talk about like your sports and your recreation, yeah, it probably makes it easier making it a rounded number. That part's easier. But as far as on the utility side, no, I don't know that it makes a big difference.
I think that we're concerned when you look at a price, for example, we're going to go swimming and we take our kids swimming and we're going to spend $4.93
Yes.
for the swimming pool. Why are we doing that? Why is it not just $5?
Exactly.
I think that's where we are, is we're saying it makes no sense that we're charging 47 cents or 23 cents.
And I would agree with you on all those types of fees, making it go to the nearest.
And that was my intention
Yes.
for bringing it out in the first
And so
place.
maybe the easy way to do that is
Utilities
with
are-
that understanding, maybe next year, when you start that process, that you can, when you
Yes.
bring those to us, it's already done. Instead of being $4.97, it's $5.
And I would agree with that, but those are going to be pretty simple to do.
And I'm not really interested in utilities because they're always going to, not always, but many times they're going to be a multiple of something. So I'm not worried about that because we're going to still end up with some odd stuff. My thing is the sports fees we charge, all those type of user fees.
Your engineering fees, those all get inputted into a system, but we can make it be rounded on those. There's no major impact. The problem with the utilities is you've created a rate study, and so those are the rates that your
I'd
expectation
just stay with stay with the utilities, but all these others that are a consumer-driven thing in
Right.
a much more personal way, I think it just makes sense to have round numbers.
And I'm okay with that.
I might add this, though, just a quick question. Are we charging a tax? If we go to the swimming pool and it's $5, are we going to have to spend $5.30?
I don't have the fees.
I would just as soon it be a $5 bill, I guess is what I'm saying.
I believe tax is included. In other words, the fee is included. Do we have John here? Yes.
Tax is included in everything,
just a
then
common
it
sense.
makes sense to me.
I agree.
Yes,
that.
that's correct.
So, I don't want to go at $5.03 because of tax, I guess is what I'm saying.
Because
Yes.
it's really tough to swim with pennies in my pocket.
And they fall out all the time.
And then your kids die
And then they
don't
can't
know how
go
to
to the
swim.
concessions and we can't get it there.
That's right. So I think that's where we are.
Okay, so I'm okay, and I'll make those changes, send you out an updated document so you can see what's happening. And leave the utilities alone, that's what I'm hearing. Okay.
Yes. So you're going to email us that, and you're also going to email us
And-
the
Yes.
thing that we can mess around
Yeah,
with.
and I have to do a little work on making that document be functional for you, because
Okay.
unfortunately, I have it linked to, so I don't have to re-input numbers every time we make changes. So I will do that for you, and I'll publish high, which will absorb this $299, and I don't think there's anything else.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have something to say, if you'll allow me.
I don't know. Some that's late in the day sometimes.
I'm smiling.
Okay, he is smiling.
You
Yes,
are
I
the
see it.
council president.
He is the council president.
Only for a few more months. I know the last several years have not been easy, and all of the department heads that are here, not very many of you, please extend to everybody else our appreciation. I mean, this hasn't been easy for us. It hasn't been easy for anybody in the city. And I hope that our actions are proving out that our words are more than just political rhetoric. We're trying to do what's best to take care of the employees, not just in salary, but in benefits. We're trying to give them the tools that they need to do their jobs appropriately and efficiently. And we are on, I mean, I look at that number right there, and we are on the right path. It's still going to take us a number of years to really get there, but we're going to, especially when Amy's abatement goes away and when Great Westerns goes away. I mean, there's just so many things lining up over the next number of years that what we're doing now is just going to be expounded greatly. And so, Gary, you won't get to participate in getting any credit.
I'll be home watching it on the news.
I'm sure you will be.
But I think a few years down the road, we're going to start seeing the benefit of this, and then all of a sudden, we really do have options, where in the past, our only option was, we don't have any money, what are we going to do?
Well,
So
I think-
I'm very happy. Thanks, Joyce, for all your work. Department heads, staff, employees, council. This is a good
Well,
place to be.
I agree.
I have to admit, the retirement approach that we've taken has been a big fueler of moving in this direction. And I think if we take that same approach to capital budgeting, I think we'll continue to see more fueling.
Yeah.
And so we're going to continue to look at ways to make the budget more functional to where we can get to where we want to be as a city.
Fantastic.
I would agree. Thank you very much. I would echo those comments from President Brown. President Brown. So, thank you very much. With that, then, we are adjourned from this.